So this is our first kind of community update developer Q&A. I'm Zach. If you haven't had the chance to talk to me, I'm looking forward to that. I am the developer relations lead for Bristlemouth. So I spend a lot of time on the forums and hopefully out in the world, getting the good word out. So hopefully I'll have an opportunity to talk to folks. This is, as I mentioned, our first monthly developer Q&A/community update. We hope to do this every month. We're going to skip next month because we've got this wonderful event planned, BristleCon, the first annual BristleCon. So we also hope that you're able to join us there, and we'll be giving our big update, like our kind of state of the union, if as it were, at that time. So as the first, it kind of falls on all of us to kind of shape the way these look in the future. So right now, what we're going to be doing is we'll do a quick, 10 minutes what's new. We'll be talking just a little bit about what's coming up, but keeping that relatively short and leaving the majority of the time for questions and answers. To help me with those questions and answers, I've brought the entire Bristlemouth army here. I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves to you kind of more or less one at a time, but I wanted to get some announcements out of the way. The first thing is we have started to ship the Pioneer Program units. So the first 10 or so have left the building. We're really excited to see the response. And so thank you to everybody who's on the call or will be listening to this later, who's either applied or been awarded. This is really critical to kind of getting the plane off the ground, so to say. We're also hosting our first BristleCon November 9 and 10. I mentioned that a second ago, but just reiterating that for folks who are going to be available to travel to San Francisco. We are doing 2 full days. The first day is general information and deep dives into topics for developers. And then the second day is either one-on-one tech support with the team here. There might be a little bit of hackathon going on, and then also we'll be running a workshop for kind of introductory workshop as well. So please take the opportunity to join us there. I'm going to do a quick introduction to one of the panelists, and then I'll kick it off to Zachary to start us off with what's new in Bristlemouth. But I just wanted to introduce folks who haven't had an opportunity to meet Charles Cross, one of the principal engineers on Bristlemouth, firmware developers on Bristlemouth, and also an engineer with Mission Robotics, who's doing some really amazing things with vehicles. Charles, you want to tell us maybe just a little bit about how you got here?
Yeah, so I came from OpenROV, which a lot of people at SOFAR did. And yeah, we work on, as Zach said, vehicle software systems, so underwater vehicles, working our way into surface vehicles and multi-vehicle type systems at Mission. And Bristlemouth is interesting to us as a way to extend those vehicle systems and with kind of consistent, standardized communication interface. And so we kind of help out with the design of the protocol and middleware aspect, and it's an area that I've been working in for a long time, just distributed communication through middlewares like DDS and others. So
Thanks. So we've got him on the line if we have some questions to get really specific. Without any more delay, I'm going to kick it over to Zachary. Zachary's been, I know there's 2 Zachs, so if you have to guess a name, please go with that. I'll kick it over to Zachary to kind of tell us what's new about Bristlemouth and introduce himself. Thank you guys. Quick note on process, if you'll hold your questions to the end, that would be amazing, just because we're going to build some time in that, and we'll have you either kind of raise your hand through the Zoom hand raise feature, or if you think of something and you don't want to forget it, just go ahead and pop that into the chat, and we'll get to that at the end. Thank you so much. Zachary, take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Zachary Crockett. I lead the firmware team at SOFAR Ocean, and I've been working in firmware and IoT for more than 10 years. Previously founded a company called Particle and just really love working in open source. To give some updates on firmware, we've been moving really fast lately. If you've been watching, we released in the last 5 weeks, version 0.3, 0.4, and 0.5. It's really exciting. There's a lot of momentum here. Let's see, some of the things that are built into those releases. We've greatly improved the usability of sort of sampler sensor sampling and gathering the statistics without needing to know esoteric like memory allocation and thread safety details. So we were really excited to make that whole system easier to use. We've cleaned up some initialization of power rails and chips on the I2C bus. This was especially necessary for a new version of the BMDK boards that we spun internally, adding some helpful buttons. And yeah, we had to make some I2C changes there. There are tons of low power improvements. The overall savings depend on the situation, but at least for our usage at SOFAR, we're saving hundreds of milliwatts compared with a couple of months ago. So that gets everybody very excited because battery life on these devices at sea matters a lot. Let's see, we've added request reply middleware, which was described in the standard. If you've downloaded the PDF and looked through it, it's part of the Bristlemouth standard, but we hadn't implemented it yet. So that just got released the other day. The first service using it is one sort of a for requesting node system information, like the app name and the firmware version, things like that. And then let's see, per a topic I created on the forum, you might have seen this, we started defining the messages that we intend to send around the Bristlemouth network using ROS style message files, which you can find in the message folder of the BM Common Messages repo. The first one there is for that system info reply. We're serializing it to CBOR on the wire, and right now those message files are just documentation, but sometime next year we'll build the tooling to generate C++ code to read and write the CBOR files. So the whole goal here is to make it easier and easier for everybody to build up the messages that we send around a Bristlemouth network and make this whole ecosystem more interoperable. And yeah, speaking of the community, the message I created on the forum, I just wanted to say that I'm psyched to welcome our first open source contribution. There was somebody named Jeff Weiss on GitHub made a helpful change to the docs that made them cleaner. There were some like weird, ugly links, and he cleaned that up, and I really appreciate that. So we very much welcome more, and I look forward to seeing more PRs from folks out in the world. Lastly, here, as of this most recent release, 0.5, we have moved all Bristlemouth firmware development at SOFAR Ocean to the open source BM protocol repo. So we are all internally very excited for this. The whole dual like public-private repo situation was an artifact of how we were working with partners to get the standard up and running and then like releasing it this past summer. And so now, as of now, we are no longer using the private repo at all. All development going forward will be in that public repo. So we can see, everybody will be able to see the PRs, the discussions, the releases will have links to PRs. All of that good stuff will be happening in the open, which is how we want it to be. And with that, I will turn it over to Evan Shapiro to tell us more about what's coming up with Bristlemouth.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, so as Zach mentioned, we have a lot of internal momentum at SOFAR focused on developing with Bristlemouth. We have other people who are joining the party now, which is really exciting. It's probably helpful to describe a little bit how we think about Bristlemouth development. There's three categories. So one category is we are developing Bristlemouth-enabled products. So we have Spotter. Early next year, we are going to be launching a temperature sensor that'll have at least 0.1 degree absolute accuracy, a adapter module for RBR CODA family of marine sensors, and an adapter module for a single point current meter. So those are going to be fully commercial grade supported products that you can buy off the shelf and plug together in any Bristlemouth application. We're also investing a lot in developing the core technology layers. So these are things like the power consumption savings that Zach mentioned, or the request reply middleware layer that lets application developers and module developers implement patterns that are more suitable to certain needs. And that's helpful for us. We are developing these to develop products on top of. It's also going to be helpful for anyone who is intending to build products on top of a Bristlemouth layer, or just to integrate Bristlemouth modules into an application. And then finally, we are investing in developer accessibility. So these are tools specifically intended to make it easier to develop with Bristlemouth. It's not about increasing the data rates or adding capabilities and reducing overhead and headers. It's about being able to get up and started with a Bristlemouth application faster. So some of the exciting things there are, we are going to be performing and publishing more example integrations of using the Bristlemouth development kit. So we have a first set of getting started guides in the documentation today. Those are going to be extended with various examples of how to use different features of Bristlemouth into the development kit, how to integrate different types of sensors into an application, and those will be published on forum and documentation. There's also a piece of the core tech that really helps developer accessibility that we've been moving the needle on, which is a specific element called Bristlemouth Serial. So that's a element in the firmware and protocol stack that we use to extend Bristlemouth communications to another processor. The developer accessibility angle here is that it's possible to connect a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino using this Bristlemouth serial module. It's how we connect our main spotter processor to the Bristlemouth network controller in our spotter device. And early next year, we should be in a position where we can actually start getting some community members using Bristlemouth serial, connecting different kinds of processors, making it easier to take off-the-shelf Raspberry Pis, Arduinos, other processors of choice, and use those for integrations and controls, and have a very seamless integration to a Bristlemouth network through this Bristlemouth serial layer. There's a lot more going on, but I want to stop there so we'll make sure we have time for questions.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, so in terms of format, we have plenty of time. We've got 15 minutes. I'd like to invite anyone on the call here to ask questions. You can do that again by either, I guess there's few of us, and few enough that we could just unmute and go for it. So if you want to do that, if you want to raise your hand, we'll call on you, that style, or if you want to pop something into the chat menu, please do, and we'll try to get your questions answered. And in terms of what's on board and what's not on board, this is an Ask Me Anything. So even if you have questions that you feel oh wow, this is really developer focused, we really got into the weeds. If you have some higher level questions, or you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing and get some advice, that's totally fine too. Feel like this might be the middle school teacher moment where I have to call on somebody to get it started. Might have some new folks joining as well.
Hi, I'm unmuted. This is Anushay from the Applied Physics Lab. I don't think anybody can see me though. Anyway, it's fine. My question is really basic and really high level. We're going to get our Pioneer hardware pretty soon, I'm hoping, and I'm really excited. So I know nothing about, well, I have people on the team who know things about micro Python and things like that, but how do I best get everybody together and just get started to integrate things for our application, or to get people just set up? Where do I start?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. There's actually kind of two parts to that. So I'm gonna take the easy part, and then the harder part we'll kick over to some of the other folks. Yeah, so we have published a couple of onboarding guides. So if you go to the Bristlemouth website and go to documentation, I think it's one of the middle panels. It says dev kit guides. And they're specifically designed for folks who are using the development kit to integrate something into the Spotter and Smart Mooring. So perfect for your Pioneer Award. Congratulations, by the way. We're really excited to have you. These guides go through everything from unboxing, like literally opening the box, all the way through your first serial integration. And so they get progressively harder They can be done individually, right? So everyone can do them at home. You can do it before you get really your hands on the hardware. There's a couple of things you can get started. Like for example, I think guide 4 goes into just working on your own machine, right? So that's something people can do before they get it, or if you have to share the hardware. And so that's a great place to start. Another really good place to start, this might, kind of sound a little lofty, but I would definitely post on the forum about what you're working on and kind of describe in high level details some of the goals and the project that you're working on, because I know there's a lot of other folks in the sphere, and especially some of the other Bristlemouth team members. They're going to be really interested in the subject matter and kind of get into the practical application, marinizing, moorings, site selection, and all that good stuff that comes along with it. The other part of your question was specifically on, okay, well, we have some folks who know a little bit about MicroPython. So I might turn this over to, I suppose any of the other three might be more equipped to kind of tell you how to get started with some of the coding and what you might want to.
Maybe I should add that we are planning on at least at first, integrating it with an Arduino. And I know Evan had mentioned something about that. So I'm particularly curious about that part.
Yeah, so I can jump in there. So I would add a +1 to everything Zach said. Go through the getting started guides. There's a lot of content and detail in there, and you can start going through those guides before you receive your hardware and just get a sense of how much of a fit it feels like for folks on the team, whether it's familiar or whether it's totally alien. Definitely don't be shy on the forums. A part of SOFAR's role in this is to provide direct technical support. So I would say even just starting with a post of we're trying to accomplish this. If you just describe generally what you're hoping to get out of this project, you'll immediately get advice on potential approaches, and you can say, well, we don't know how to do that. What should we do? And don't be shy. Don't be worried.
It sounds like they know stuff on the forum, so I am a little shy, but I'll send my students.
Yep.
I'm going to be the fearless leader and send my students up front.
Yep. People are not expected to know how to do everything. That's why we're here to help. And then I do think from a general standpoint, right, Bristlemouth is it's purely focused on this integration element. So it's when you want to get power to a new module. It's when you want to get capabilities from other modules as part of the system, telemetry and SD card logging and other sensor data. I think it always makes sense when you're building something new to separate those paths. So there's the path of, integrating it with an Arduino first to see if the sensor is working, and making sure that it's behaving as expected. And then there's the path of integrating that sensor element with other modules in the system. You don't have to try and do both of those in the same iteration. You can separate those efforts. You can play with the development kit and start getting example data, even just example data flowing where you want it in the system. You could start with an Arduino. There will be examples building and coming of how to port an Arduino library over to the development kit, or how to connect an Arduino to the development kit. That doesn't exist today. And that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you've got to ask, or you've got to tell your students to go on the forums and ask.
Okay, thank you so much. That really helps. That's a good pointer. Thank you.
There's a couple of questions on the Q&A if we wanted to grab those.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. From Peter, we have any progress on supporting development on Linux and/or Windows? Oh man, great question. Windows is going to be a while. We have plans to try to roll things out for Linux. I'm actually going to try my hand at that this week and see how it goes. I'll let you guys know, but that's a pretty high priority for us. I can't give you any concrete date on that, just because we're not really sure what drivers are going to be needed, and some, machine variation could put a wrench in it. But if everything goes well, even if everything goes poorly, you'll know about it. I'll let you guys know for sure. So keep your eyes on the forum for a post there. Excellent question, Peter. I really, really appreciate that one. We have a question, I think, from Andre. Does the Bristlemouth standard allow for the transmission of non-ASCII based messages payloads? For example, binary or compressed data. Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to kick that over to you guys, though.
Yeah, so I'll take that, and absolutely the answer is yes. Part of a message, a topic I posted on the forum last week, I think it was asking about what binary on the wire serialization format should we use for, and what interface definition language, sort of how do we document what the messages are? And so this is very much open to different contributions and different ways of doing it. Something we're going to start doing at SOFAR is using CBOR, which is kind of like a binary version of JSON, if you know what that is. It's got, sort of like string keys and values that are often numbers or something else. These messages being sent around, and it is very much in binary, not in ASCII. So yeah, definitely Bristlemouth supports arbitrary data being sent on the wire.
Thanks, Andre. If that doesn't answer your question, please let us know. Interesting to find a little more detail there. I'm sorry, Charles, you were going to say something?
Well, yeah, I was just going to add something on the previous question. So just to kind of make sure people are aware, like the main interface that's probably going to be like the fastest way to integrate from a Linux computer, like Raspberry Pi or whatever, is probably going to be the Bristlemouth serial interface with a layer that like works on Linux. So then you can just like talk over the Raspberry Pi serial port. Another approach that I'm hoping to experiment with here over the next couple months is they're kind of like some off-the-shelf 10-base T1L adapters that you can like plug in a USB to T1L, which is the same like physical wire protocol that's like happening between the elements, and creating a simple user space application in Linux where you can just talk over like raw Ethernet frames on the Bristlemouth network. And it'll probably be very minimal to start with, but just like implementing the very basic abilities like to do discovery and send messages. That way, like the BM serial interface, you're going to be limited to like the baud rate of your serial connection to the Bristlemouth mode. With the other approach of like directly talking on the physical network, you can get the full 10 megabits. So it's definitely something like when talking about like working with cameras and other high bandwidth devices, BM serial is probably not going to necessarily be the right fit. But there are, being able to open up like a full bandwidth interface from Linux or the application processor space is definitely like an important thing. Got our eyes on.
Thanks, guys. I think that also answers. Ron had a question. Hi, Ron. Good to see you. Had a question as well. Does that include? We said Arduinos. That includes Raspberry Pi. Yeah, definitely. That includes pretty much. We want to be as agnostic to which microprocessor or SOM that we use, so we can go with whatever you guys are comfortable with. Vince, I was answering your question specifically about where can you get started? So I think there are a number of available off-the-shelf sensors for something like that. The multi-parameter SONs are nice because you can add and subtract different water quality parameters as you need them. They're pretty expensive, and again, we're kind of looking for something with a serial output. That would be really great. The main enemy here is going to be biofouling, right? So look for a wiper. Something, even a battery powered wiper is better than nothing. Okay, so you've got a classroom full of students. You don't necessarily need to go out and purchase the latest and greatest of oceanographic quality sensor to do a proof of concept. There are a number of environmental sensors that are already available for education. Specifically, I'm thinking of groups like Atlas Scientific has $100 to $200 at most, for something like temperatures, much less. Sensors that are all integratable with, sometimes even with libraries that are ready for Arduino or Raspberry Pi. So the way that Evan described it earlier, that you can kind of like piecemeal it out, I think this was an earlier question, you can kind of piecemeal it out and decide which parts of the project to attack. I think that's a great approach here. I think since you'll likely have equipment in hand relatively soon, you could get folks working on some of these lower cost sensors, just establishing a data stream to the spotter and smart mooring with one of these lower cost sensors as kind of a proof of concept. And to start, you might even pull a team onto the Arduino side of things, where there's maybe a little more established libraries, and you can, for example, grab a humidity sensor and like breathe on it, or like a water temperature sensor or turbidity, and add chocolate powder to the credit to David Young at RoboNation for that. But you could add chocolate powder, Hershey's chocolate powder, to the water to kind of see the turbidity change. And you can do all of that with something from Atlas Scientific, relatively low cost. There are other companies like SparkFun and Adafruit that have kind of more modular bits as well. So that would be my recommendation for kind of getting started, and then kind of dealing with the data handling and integration on our system, maybe a little bit later in the project, or as some of the infrastructure is kind of finished. Or if you have a big enough group, you can kind of divide up into several teams. One team working on the sensor integration for reading data, parsing it, averaging it, doing a standard deviation mean, that kind of thing. And another group responsible for, okay, we know the data types we're going to send. We're going to send a integer every 30 seconds or something. Then you can kind of model that onto our system and say, okay, we want to store that to the SD card as a separate project, and we want to trigger an Iridium message every time we get 10 of those as a separate project, and kind of piecemeal it out. Happy to help you get started on that. Excited to hear about what your classrooms are going to get involved in, and how much they're willing to take on. So, that would be my advice. Zachary, anything to add to that?
Nope, that all sounds great. Just reiterating, like you said, finding those low-cost alternatives that already have an Arduino library is a great place to start.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with us. It's really exciting. Again, this is our first one, so if you have any format changes, things, suggestions on how to make this better, other than extending the Zoom meeting so that we can finish, and other than that, we'll make that happen next time. Please let us know. And again, thank you all for your time and energy. See you guys on the forums.